There are three major parts to great note-taking in class: what you do before class, during, and after. Before class, do whatever you can to be as familiar with the topic as possible, whether by thoroughly reading through assigned materials, skimming, or reading the headings and subheadings. The more familiar you are with the topic, the better you will understand what is going on in class, and the more adept you will be in identifying what is important to write down. Before class, you'll also need to decide how you will take notes, whether with a laptop or using a pen and paper. There are pros and cons to each, and you will want to test which works best for you. Using pen and paper is versatile. You can easily write down text or draw figures. Research also finds that those who use longhand more deeply encode, that is, digest the information they are taking notes on. On the other hand, note-taking is cognitively taxing. After all, you have to pay attention, decide what is important to write down, and then actually write it down all at the same time. Some will be unable to do these processes quickly enough, and so will miss critical information. Using a laptop also has its pros and cons. Many say they can type faster than they can write, and this is an advantage because greater quantity of notes is correlated with better grades. On the other hand, students who type have a tendency to mindlessly take down what they hear instead of determining what's important and what's not, which means if you type, it's particularly critical to review your notes after class in order to encode the information. Another con of using a laptop is that having the internet and social media at your fingertips is a huge source of distraction. A compromise between the two note-taking tools may be to use a digital pen, such as those sold by LiveScribe. A digital pen records, visually as well as orally, while you take notes. So after class, if you point your pen to a page in your notes, your pen will play back an audio recording of what was said at that time. One of the cons of using a digital pen is that it's a bit fat, like a large crayon. Still, many students and business folk use them to achieve comprehensive notes. During class, set up your paper to take notes using the Cornell Method. This requires 3 sections as shown here. Take your notes in the largest section. Take down as many of the main and supporting points as well as examples as possible. Leave out non-critical words. Use outline format. Use abbreviations and symbols, especially for long words which are repeated. If you don't know a word, write it down the way it sounds and later figure it out. If you don't understand something being said in class, write it down verbatim. After class, figure it out. If you're taking notes during a non-lecture class, not only write down the main and supporting points, but also identify which points were made by the professor and which by students. As soon after class as possible, review your notes while your memory is fresh. Clarify unclear notes. Fill in missing information. Fill in the Q section. The Q column is where you create questions which are relevant to your notes. For example, if your notes describe the anatomy of a cell, you might write, "What are the different parts of the cell?" in the Q column. The goal is to have 3 to 5 questions per page. These questions should vary from factual questions, such as the question we just created, to critical thinking questions as according to Bloom's revised taxonomy of cognition. To learn how to create these different types of questions, check out the video explaining Bloom's revised taxonomy. The Q section is also a good place to write down any questions you have about your notes so that you can follow up with an instructor. These questions will be valuable later when it's time to study for your exam. Fill in the summary section as according to the Cornell Method. In the summary section, if your notes describe the anatomy of a cell, you might simply write cell anatomy. These are just a few note-taking tips. I strongly encourage you to visit the Learning Center as they can help you to implement these tips as well as share additional strategies.